We've all had a childhood friend we thought we could date, but for our protagonist, things didn't go as planned. When he thought his crush would confess to him, she instead confessed her love for his best friend. Friend zone, here we come. But that's not the end of it. Later that day, the prettiest girl in school also asked him out, only to confess her feelings for his best friend too. Poor guy. Just when he thought things couldn't get worse, unexpectedly, the last person he expected confesses her love to him, kicking off a whirlwind of romantic chaos. But first, some context. The story introduces us to our protagonist, Amitsuyu Kisaragi, known to his friends as Joro. He's an ordinary high school student leading a peaceful life. On his way to school, we meet his best friends, Aoi Hinata, nicknamed Himawari, and Teo Oga, known as Sun, the popular star baseball player. Shortly after, Sakura Akino, nicknamed Cosmos, the beautiful student council president, enters the scene. For some reason, she doesn't get along well with Himawari, leaving her visibly upset just by talking to Joro. As Joro is the student council secretary, Cosmos invites him out on a Saturday after school. He thinks it might be about school business, but secretly hopes for a date with her. That same day, he receives a message from Himawari to meet her the next day, 2 dates in 1 weekend. Quite the situation for our protagonist. When Saturday arrives, Joro meets Cosmos. They go shopping, eat together, and stroll through a park watching the sunset. Just as Joro expects a confession, Cosmos instead confesses her love for his best friend. Surprise. It turns out she developed feelings for him after seeing him cry over a lost baseball game. Since then, she's been unable to confess and asks Joro to help her win his heart. Joro agrees to help. The next day, Joro goes on his date with Himawari. They visit a shopping mall, eat together, and go to a park where, once again, Joro anticipates a confession. And just like Cosmos, Himawari confesses her love for his best friend. That park bench must be cursed. She explains she fell for him for the same reason as Cosmos and asks for Joro's help as well. Back home, Joro devises a crazy plan to help both girls, hoping one will be rejected by his best friend so he can end up with her. The next day, he confesses to both girls that he was helping them to avoid any conflict, but it's too late to salvage their friendship. In light of this, Joro decides to take a break in the library, where he meets a girl named Sumariko, nicknamed Pansy. She approaches him, knowing his true nature, and threatens to reveal it unless he listens to what she has to say. Pansy boldly confesses her love for him. Shocked by her upfront approach, Joro initially rejects her. However, Pansy insists he visit her every day in the library to secretly chat and get to know each other better. Joro realizes he doesn't have much choice in the matter. Next day, we see Joro still helping Himawari get a chance to win over Sunday. He arranges for them to watch a movie together. Afterward, he helps Cosmos arrange to eat together with Sunday. However, since Sun is slower than me at picking up hints, Joro suggests they all eat together. Joro then claims he has other plans and rushes off. Later, he confides everything to Pansy, who suspected something was up. She advises him to directly ask Sun which girl he likes, making it easier for Joro to spend more time with her. During physical education class, Joro seizes the chance to ask Sun whom he likes. Sun takes him outside and they sit on a bench to talk, a reminder of all the bad experiences Joro has had. But don't worry, I doubt his best friend will tell him anything bad. It's there that Sun admits he likes Pansy. What? This is getting crazier by the minute. Turns out, on the day Sun lost the game, Pansy was the only one who comforted him as he left the hallway. That's why he fell for her. But wait, there's more. Sun knew Joro talked to Pansy, so he asks Joro to help him win her over. However, Joro refuses, fearing the other girls would find out and turn against him. Before leaving, Sun encourages him with a baseball metaphor. Later on, Joro asks Pansy if she prefers Sun instead, which angers her because she was about to give him cookies. Just then, Sun sees them talking in the hallway and gets upset because Joro had claimed not to interact with her much. Thankfully, Pansy manages to calm the situation, but she's still annoyed with him. After this, the other two continue to pursue Sun, trying to win his love. Joro receives a message from Cosmos asking to meet. When they do, she's upset and feels betrayed because Sun asked her to help him win over Pansy, misunderstanding the baseball example Joro gave. Joro takes the blame and Cosmos angrily tells him off. As if things couldn't get worse, Himawari calls him to say Sun also asked her to help with Pansy, leaving her angry with Joro too. Because of this, Joro goes to talk to Pansy to try to sort things out. But if you thought it couldn't get worse, it does, because right at that moment, Sun arrives with the girls at the library, catching them talking. And apparently, it was all Pansy's idea. Joro is in trouble now. There, everyone tried to cancel the protagonist because Sun realized that if he talked to her, and the other two waifus told her he was a liar, but the protagonist couldn't take it anymore and exploded, saying that they were only using him and since things didn't go as they wanted, now they were mad at him, saying that turned the tables for a moment and both felt bad. But Pansy finished sinking the ship when she told told him that he had tried to flirt with Sun. In the end, he deceived his two friends, and thanks to this, Sun gave him a tremendous punch in the face for lying and told him not to come near any of them. But before the guy took him away, Pansy told him to trust her. As if that wasn't enough, there was a waifu in the library who noticed everything that happened and started gossiping throughout the school. So poor Joro ended up crying, well, practically, because he was left alone and everyone in the school spoke ill of him, everyone except Pansy's stalker, who out of nowhere sent him a message to meet in the library one day, and if he didn't attend, he would regret it. When the protagonist went, the waifu sent him to look for a book to hide and listen to what Sun had to say. Yes, people, she's crazy and knows how to do her thing. Turns out that the guy, after what happened, started visiting her and just arrived at that moment, so the waifu asked him why he had deceived the protagonist, since he knew that both waifus liked him thanks to Joro, and that's why he planned to put him in an uncomfortable situation to distance him from the waifus and make himself look like the good guy in the movie. So she asks him, why did he do it? Well, turns out the guy was jealous of his friend and wanted revenge, since some time ago a waifu in middle school asked him for help to conquer him, but Sun was in love with her, so he spoke ill of his friend to make him forget about him. But the waifu knew his true personality and still loved him because she knew he was a good person, since she saw him waiting for his friend to cheer him up the day he lost the baseball game. Only she didn't have glasses at that moment and was very beautiful, so much so that the protagonist only noticed her tremendous attributes. When telling him all that, Sun tried to act tough with Pansy, and the protagonist had to come out to defend his girlfriend and tell him that he was a complete jerk for making fun of the two waifus who were in love with him, so he sent him to apologize to them. But even though Sun accepted, he had no intentions of letting things go like that. After the two left, and the protagonist told Pansy that he never planned to visit her again, when in reality he did plan to, the waifu called her two friends, who also secretly heard everything, to forgive the protagonist. So the next day, both defended him from the other students and apologized to him, but since the guy had no fucking idea what was going on, he went to Pansy to ask her, and she told him that Sun apologized in front of the whole class and the protagonist was able to clear his name. And once that matter was cleared up, the waifu takes the opportunity to tell him another truth, unbuttons her blouse, takes off her glasses, and shows him her true plot. And it turns out that he had also seen her that day, only he didn't even notice her face because he was looking at something else. Taking advantage of the moment, the waifu asks him again if he will never come back to the library, and the guy, after seeing that, tells her yes. Some time passes, and we see that the guy continued visiting Pansy in the library, despite saying he hated her. She sweetened him up with cupcakes and flirting, although he only wanted to see those two good reasons again. But she tells him he can't because there's a demon behind her or something. She also knew he was visiting because he was afraid to reconcile with his friends, although she convinced him to try. When he goes to the classroom to talk to them, he meets Hiba Asanaro. This waifu was from the school journalism club and just wanted to ask him something about the school dance. In that moment, he saw Himawari trying to study and took the opportunity to talk to her, but the waifu ran away and they ended up arguing on the stairs. Turns out she also wanted to reconcile with him, but neither of them knew what to say. So in the end, they became friends again, and the waifu leaned all her friendship on him as she always did. After this, she helped him reconcile with Sun on the school terrace, while Cosmos listened secretly, hoping the protagonist would also fix things with her. But the guy forgot, and after this, he went to Pansy to help his two friends with their studies. There, he met Asanaro again, and they didn't manage to finish talking because he realized Cosmos was watching them as if she wanted to beat them up. So he remembered he still needed to fix things with her, and to not make her feel bad, he told her he left her for last because she was the best of all. The worst part was that she believed it all. But anyway, once he reconciled with all his friends, they studied together in the library and had a fun time. And on their way home, the very dirty guy, when he saw the three waifus together, came up with the crazy idea of creating his own harem with them, while on the other hand, we see that Asanaro was up to something that didn't look very good. In a change of scene, we see Himawari being very affectionate with the protagonist as usual. Upon arriving at school, he receives a message from Cosmos to meet with her, but before that, Asanaro tells him to meet on the rooftop to talk about something. There, the guy felt true terror because the waifu made him sit on a bench, and well, you know how it goes for the protagonist with benches. She started saying nice things to him as if she was about to confess her feelings, because every time she was near him, her heart raced, she felt emotions and stuff like that. But as expected, she wasn't in love with him. On the contrary, she detested him because he was a womanizer, and she couldn't deny it because she even took pictures of him with the girls and knew he wanted to have his own harem. So she threatened him that if he didn't prove her wrong, she would publish the story in the school newspaper on the day of the festival when many people would be there. Because of this, she told him she would accompany him everywhere to keep an eye on him. After this, we see him encountering Cosmos, who was more affectionate than usual with him, which was quite strange, but this was because the guy was selected to dance with her at the festival, and in this dance, he would have to dance with 3 more waifus, and one of them would become his real partner, meaning that now the waifu seemed to want the protagonist. Upon hearing this, the guy was about to celebrate by screaming like a 5-year-old girl, but he couldn't do that because he knew the other waifu was watching him. Because of this, the guy met with his friends and told them what was happening with Asunaro. Probably there was a misunderstanding since she saw him with a mischievous look on his face on the day of the baseball game. And well, from that moment on she had her eye on him and labeled him a womanizer. The waifus didn't care about this at all. Even Pansy took advantage of the moment to try to be his girlfriend and solve things with her. But since the protagonist doesn't settle for just one waifu, he said no. Well, after this, Cosmos tells him to accompany her to find the third waifu who will dance with them, and the guy agrees, but at the same time, he asks her not to be so affectionate with him so that Asunaro doesn't suspect anything. And she does, although she exaggerates a bit and the waifu notices, especially when the guy tries to talk to the first-year waifu. She runs away when she sees him. Apparently when Pansy asked her to kiss her feet, someone else heard it, and now they thought the guy had a foot fetish or something. Since they were left without a waifu, Cosmos invited Sun to take her place, and they started rehearsing with him. The next day, the most popular waifu in the class approached him with her friends to cancel him because the article Asunaro was writing about him got leaked, and because of this all the waifus distanced themselves from him, even Pansy to avoid problems. Since then, the protagonist was left alone, and this made Asunaro feel bad because supposedly she hadn't leaked the newspaper story. So she approached him and said he could rehearse with her for the dance since none of his friends were approaching him. Although it didn't seem like it, she said he moved very well. QUI, how's that? And well, while they were rehearsing on the rooftop, Cosmos was watching them sneakily, as if she was going to cut his goose. So a week passed by, and we see that the protagonist still hadn't spoken to his friends. The only thing he could do was wait for the festival day to spend a pleasant time with them. That's when the waifus from the other day arrived to bother the protagonist, but just before they started saying things, Asunaro arrived to defend him. She had been the only one who stayed by his side all week, but well, it was the least she could do because in a way, everything happened because of her fault, or we'll know more about it later. Then, Sun called him to say that his parents got mad because he danced the flower dance with him, so she couldn't help him on the festival day, and he needed to find a third waifu. Asunaro offered to help him, but just at that moment Cosmos arrived and asked the waifu to talk alone, but the protagonist ended up accompanying them at Asunaro's request. Poor thing, she dug her own grave. Turns out, Cosmos started showing evidence of everything she did to deceive the protagonist and keep him away from the girls. She started spreading rumors all over the school about him, and also published the article all to be with him and also to enter the dance. And well, you're probably wondering why the waifu did all this, and we go back to the baseball game from before. There, the protagonist saved her from a baseball hit, and the waifu fell in love with him. Apparently everyone fell in love that day. Even though he had another loli for his harem, the protagonist was mad at her because she hurt his friends and changed their dance plans, so the waifu promised to make things right and apologize to them. Later, the festival dance began, and the protagonist danced first with Himawari. Since they were childhood friends, let's say the protagonist didn't pay much attention to her. But when it was time to dance with Cosmos, everyone was amazed. Since being the student council president, she had a lot of fans and looked very beautiful. Plus, when they finished dancing, she kissed him on the cheek and said she had felt very lonely without him. Then she turned as red as a tomato and left the spot to the third waifu, which she had just found, and it was none other than Pansy. Seeing her without glasses, and with her two good dance moves, everyone was crazy about her. They didn't even know who she was because she was so beautiful, and well, the protagonist reconciled with her and drove her even crazier than she already was for him. After this, we see that the guy gets a huge surprise when he finds Pansy at his house, and that wasn't all because Four Eyes became friends with his mother by reading her favorite novel, all to win over her future mother-in-law. Although since the guy was uncomfortable with both of them, he had to do what Pansy wanted, and well, she had plans to go to the pool with him. So, he ended up taking her. Although at first he didn't want to go, when he arrived and saw the three waifus in swimsuits, his hormones got stirred up, especially because he had read his horoscope in the morning, and supposedly the universe and cosmic signals could make him lucky that day or at least help him with one of them. But things didn't turn out as he thought because playing rock, paper, scissors, he lost and had to go buy drinks for his friends, although everything wasn't bad because just while he was in line, he ran into Asaka Sasankwa. When he saw her in a swimsuit, he didn't recognize her, but the waifu did, and in a way he felt bad for having been accused because of the rumors that had spread about him because of Asunaro. So while he was talking to her, he asked her for advice, since a friend of his had hurt a friend of his and wanted to know what he could do to make it up to him, and the guy told her that a simple apology would be fine. Clearly the waifu was referring to the two of them, but the protagonist had no idea. So well, the waifu told him that that wasn't enough and asked him how he liked girls, so the guy told her that with black hair, like pansies, and after that he gave her a soda and left. When he returned to his friends, the lolas began to fight to spend time with him. Himawari wanted to go to the slide, Cosmos wanted to float in the pool, and Pansy wanted to go to the hot springs, so in order to not get into trouble between them, they agreed that they would all do what they wanted to do with him, and with the one who had the most fun, they could make a very spicy request, something that the guy obviously accepted. So first he went with Himawari, he laid out his whole plot while they were sliding down the slide. They had fun, but more than they should have, because the guy lost his shorts at that moment and almost showed the colossal titan to the waifu if Sun had not saved him. Then he tried to get on a less masculine float with Cosmos, but the waifu was carried away by her hormones and ended up leaving him alone. Well, not alone, because his friend helped him again so he wouldn't feel bad. Although, instead of helping him, the two of them seemed like a couple of butterflies. Finally, he took a bath in the hot springs with Pansy, and when everything was going well, the waifu started to tell him that her mother had told her everything about him, including the plus 18 magazines he had in his room. There the conversation got awkward, and luckily Sun arrived to save him again. So they ended the day and none of the three won. The one who ended up accompanying the protagonist home was Sun. The next day, the protagonist was calm in the classroom, when out of nowhere the redhead's friends appear to apologize for accusing him of being a womanizer, and to top it off, just then Asaka arrives with her hair dyed black, just like he had told the waifus he liked. It seems our guy already had another waifu for his harem. In a scene change, we go back a bit to the past, where the protagonist was buying some food for Sun while he was at the baseball game, and seeing that nice gesture, the waifu who was selling seemed to fall in love with the protagonist too. Returning to the present, we see that this waifu started studying at the same school as him, and not only that, she caught everyone's attention by kneeling in front of the protagonist to Tokarl la Flauta. I mean, to tell him that she was at his service, practically declaring herself and joining his harem. The teacher introduces her as Yoki. Seeing that they had competition, Asunaro and Asaka were pretty pissed off, but they tried to hide it so he wouldn't notice, and well, Himawari on the other hand started threatening him, saying that she would accuse him to the other two waifus if he messed around with her. After this, we see that the protagonist wanted to see what the waifu really wanted with him, because he always found himself with a crazy girl who ended up getting him into trouble, so now the poor guy was traumatized and cautious. Speaking of which, we see that the waifu saves him from taking a good fall with a banana peel. They were playing Mario Kart in the school corridors. Okay, not really. Well, the truth is that to thank her, the protagonist asked her what he could do for her, but the waifu told him that she just wanted to serve him and also call him Joro like his friends do, and the guy couldn't resist. After this, he took her to the library to introduce her to his friends, and well, that didn't turn out very well because the waifu had prepared lunch for him, and Cosmos had also done so to prevent them from clashing or worse, making him clash, he had to eat everything. When the others left and the protagonist was alone with Pansy, the waifu gave him a book she liked for him to read, so they could have an interesting topic of conversation when he visited her. The guy took the book, but told her he couldn't visit her that afternoon because he had something important to do. When he came out of a store after buying something, he ran into Himawari, and as the waifu was always there pushing his buttons, she made him stumble and lose the book Pansy had given him, so he had to go back to the same place at night where he thought he had dropped it. There he met some waifus, told them what was going on, and they helped him find it, but it was all messed up, so he went to the mall to see if he could buy a new one, and well, that wasn't so easy because the book cost an arm and a leg, and he had to work hard to be able to buy it. Because of this, the guy spent the next day looking for a good job like crazy, so much so that he ignored his whole harem. Seeing this, Yoki told him he could work with her, and obviously the guy accepted. After this, the protagonist hoped to be alone with Pansy to tell her what had happened with the book, although the waifu didn't care and just wanted to keep seeing him privately in the library, but the guy wouldn't have time since he had to work to buy another book, and well, he had no choice but to leave it alone. In a scene change, we see that the guy had already started working with Yoki as a waiter in her restaurant, saving up to buy the book for his waifu little by little. After this, we see the foolish Himawari seeing the protagonist reading the book that Pansy had lent him, and upon seeing it all worn out, she told him he should just buy a new one, not knowing that it was all her fault and that he was working very hard to be able to do so. Anyway, the hypocrisy. On another note, Pansy was upset with him because he wasn't spending his afternoons with her anymore, despite doing it all for her. The waifu seemed to be mad at him for something else, and well, to not stir the pot further, the guy left things as they were and went to work. There, we see that Asaka was going to visit him with her friends to get his attention, and well, it was odd that everything was going well for our guy because while he was at work, he accidentally spilled food on a customer, which was a huge problem. Then, on his way back from work, he met Pansy, and she told him that he was exerting effort on something he didn't have to do, since she had already told him to leave things as they were. Well, that's when the guy exploded and told her that he had nothing better to do unlike his friends, and he just wanted to strive to be better. When she tried to console him, he sent her away. Well, since then, the waifu stopped looking for him and didn't speak to him anymore. Thanks to this, the guy felt bad about what he had said, and the next day his friends rubbed salt in the wound, with Himawari bringing up the book again. Sun, seeing him all downcast, said some words that motivated him a bit. Later, when the protagonist left work, he met a guy named Yasuo in a park who, seeing him sad, said some words of encouragement that reminded him of what Sun had said. Thanks to that, he was willing to make things right with his waifu, and he met with her to apologize. Once he patched things up with Pansy, he returned to work more lively to collect the money he had saved to buy the book for his waifu. But when he arrived at the bookstore, it was already sold out. Fortunately, the person who bought it was Himawari. As it turns out, she had learned about all the trouble caused by the damn book, so she stopped buying a tennis racket to make things right with him. Instead of being happy about her kind gesture, he got upset because she had stopped doing her things because of him. Wait, what? Well, at least he didn't end up on bad terms terms with his waifu, he went to see her at her tennis match, got a little kiss on the cheek from her, which made the other two waifus jealous. Then they went to eat at the restaurant where he works, where he scored points with Pansy by correctly answering a question she asked about the book, and on the other hand, Asaka said she saw him with more confidence, which pleased him a lot. The next day, the guy met with Tampopo, the waifu who had rejected him at the dance because of rumors about his foot fetish. Well, turns out this waifu wanted to talk to him in private, and to spice things up, she sent him to sit on a damn bench. That's where she started talking like the other waifus, and bam, she told him she wanted him to help get Sun together with Pansy. It seems she noticed Sun looking at Pansy lovingly during the baseball game, and when she realized she was the third waifu he danced with and saw how beautiful she was, she wanted the school star baseball player to date the prettiest waifu to motivate him more to win the championship this time, and thus she could become an idol of the winning team. Asunaro heard all of this, and well, she also wanted to help with their plan to remove another rival from the picture, and to top it off, Tampopo gave him some really dirty pictures of her to encourage him to help her. Because of this, the three decided to work together and try to provoke jealousy in Sun to see if he had a chance with Pansy, but that didn't go very well, to say the least. After this, the guy meets with Tampopo in the courtyard for the revelation of the century, because it turns out the waifu didn't want to get Sun a girlfriend, but wanted Pansy to date someone who wasn't him because of his bad reputation, and she had known her for a long time. Apparently she had a fondness for her or something. Well, they found out all of this thanks to Asunaro. No wonder she was a journalist, such a big gossip. But well, the truth was that just then Pansy arrived and Tampopo ran off embarrassed. There the protagonist asked her why she had done something like that, but Pansy played dumb and didn't tell him anything, just took back the waifu she had left him and gave him one of hers. On the other hand, we see that Cosmos received bad news from the principal, as it seems the old man was thinking of closing the school library. The next morning, Four Eyes saw the protagonist looking at her photo and got all hot and bothered because she's passionate and she proposed doing the NO respect, but knew something was wrong with that, and it turns out Tampopo tried to troll her with it because no idea. But well, at that moment, Cosmos arrived to give them the bad news that he was thinking of closing the library. Because of this, everyone gathered to come up with a plan to prevent that from happening, so they came up with the idea of getting more visits to the library every day so Sun, Himawari, Cosmos, and Asunaro would talk to their club buddies to help with that. And well, as for the protagonist, poor thing only had them, so he couldn't tell anyone else, although by fate's reasons he ran into Yasuo, the guy who advised him the other day. This guy attended another school and was also going through something similar, so he took advantage to ask him for help. The next day, the guy showed up with the two waifus who helped him find Pansy's book the other day because apparently they knew each other from going to the same school, and it turns out they also knew Pansy since they studied with her last year. But well, once they all gathered in the library, Pansy started acting strange because of Yasuo. She even seemed afraid of him, but well, surely we'll find out later why. After helping them fix the library, the two waifus who were with Yasuo took the protagonist aside, so Pansy and Yasuo could talk alone, but Asunaro ruined their moment and went with the waifu. The next day, the waifus met with the protagonist, Cosmos, and Himawari to ask them to help get Pansy together with Yasuo, but the protagonist realized they were in love with him, and something didn't add up with them, so he said no. After this, the protagonist met with Pansy in the library, where the waifu told him that Yasuo was the demon she had, and it's not that the guy was bad, on the contrary, he was too good, because it turns out she used to be very popular at her previous school, to the point of being harassed by everyone, and well, one day she met Yasuo, the guy helped her, but after that, the guy became obsessed with her and ended up falling in love, and the waifu didn't feel the same, but she didn't know how to tell him to screw off because he had also helped her, and well, that's why she changed schools. Knowing the whole truth, the protagonist told her he would help her. However, things started to get complicated because after saving the library, they didn't even get a chance to celebrate, as the annoying Yasuo started visiting the waifu more often because he wanted to help her again, and the protagonist was thinking of how the heck to get him out of there so Pansy would stop feeling uncomfortable. Luckily, Sun noticed what was going on and managed to get him away for a moment. The protagonist took advantage of this to talk alone with him and ask what he would do if Pansy got a boyfriend. The guy, always trying to act perfect, said he would take it well, but would be really sad. That's when he realized why Tampopo wanted Pansy to get a boyfriend, and well, it turns out she was in love with Yasuo and wanted to get Pansy out of the way. This is a love mess, people. Well, just as they were talking, Pansy arrived, and to add more spice to the matter, she told the two about a deal she had made with Sun, which was that if he won the baseball championship that year, she would agree to be his girlfriend. Yasuo nearly exploded with the news, and despite the protagonist always pretending he didn't care, he also didn't like that because he knew he was going to lose his waifu. On top of that, she told him not to come to the library for a while. Because of this, he asked Sun to confirm what she had told him, and the guy said yes, but apparently they had something going on that he didn't realize. And well, the one who ended up explaining everything to him when he was all depressed during the holidays was Yoki. She told him they had kept him away from the situation with Yasuo so he wouldn't get hurt, but the protagonist didn't care and didn't give up on his waifu. The next day, he spoke alone with Sun to tell him he couldn't support him in his game because he had something more important to do, obviously to win back his waifu. So he arrived at the library like Shrek just before Yasuo confessed to her in front of everyone. He said I oppose. He even challenged him to a game, which consisted of giving a hairpin to all the girls, which would serve as a vote to give it to anyone, and whoever got the most would stay with Pansy. But things didn't go as he had planned, because Cosmos, Himawari, and Asunaro voted for Yasuo, and all because they were also in love with him and took advantage of the moment to confess in front of everyone, and thus take Pansy out of the love game despite being his friend. The guy was happy to have 3 waifus crazy for him, but he was still angry for losing the one he liked the most. Well, people, that's the end of this anime. If you liked it and want me to upload more similar content, don't forget to leave your like and comment the word bench. By the way, if you want to know what will happen with Pansy and the protagonist, you'll have to watch the OVA. Bye bye.